I want to take just a few moments and talk about the 2 new versions of Lightroom, the 1 new feature, and show you exactly how to use it. All right, so as I just said, there are 2 new versions of Lightroom. We've got Adobe Lightroom Classic CC and Adobe Lightroom CC. It's quite confusing at face value, and I have to say, Classic CC is the dumbest name I've heard since Coca-Cola Classic. Now, I don't know if that was dumb. I don't care. It's not the best name, but here is how I can explain it to you as simply as possible. If you are like me and you're a normal Adobe, Photoshop, Lightroom CC users. It's called the photography plan, the photography bundle. You have both of those programs available to you for $9.99. Moving forward, you continue to have both of those programs available to you for $9.99, but you also have this other thing called Adobe Lightroom CC, which is a more mobile, sync-friendly version. There is, however, a separate plan where you can get just that mobile sync-friendly version with lots of storage space, up to 1 terabyte for just $9.99 a month. But we'll set that aside. We'll come back and talk about that at some point. It's a simplified version. It doesn't give you Photoshop. It does give you a standalone desktop editing system, but it is simpler and designed really about syncing and staying sunk with your other mobile devices and giving you a extremely similar, let's say it, identical editing experience across all of these different platforms, whereas Adobe Lightroom Classic CC remains that desktop, fully featured program that we know and love and doesn't look the same when we go to adobe.lightroom.com or when we go to the Lightroom mobile on our mobile editing devices. All right, so I've got a group of images loaded into Lightroom, and I said that there's just 1 new feature, and the others are speed improvements. Let's briefly run through. Here are the highlights where they say they've made gains. Application launch time is supposed to be faster. I won't say it's supposed to be faster after every one of these. I'll just say it, and you fill in. It's supposed to be faster. Preview generation, including a standard 1-to-1 and minimal previews. Import selection workflow with embedded sidecar preview option will now render in real time as those images are dumped into the folder. That is much more like some of those other standalone raw viewers that are extremely fast. Switching between the library and develop module, moving from photo to photo, and responsive brushing. Responsive brushing is supposed to be faster. That doesn't work for that last one, but you know what I mean. This is all supposed to be faster, and I've been using it now for about the last 90 minutes, and I can tell you without a doubt, it is noticeably faster. And for me, the biggest lag, the biggest holdup was the brushing. The preview generation, I would go get a cup of tea usually. Switching between images certainly felt like it could have been faster, but it was when I'm editing an image and I'm working on it in detailed selections, working with the brush tool, and it's just lagging behind me. When I run my live show, it's just so frustrating to say, oh, I just brushed this real quick and lighten this part. And then we're all standing there waiting and staring while I'm waiting for this image to respond to that brushing I've just done. I can tell you that it's much, much faster. Let's dive in and look and see, and you can decide. So I've got 2 Lightrooms down here. You can see Adobe Lightroom CC and Adobe Lightroom Classic CC. So I'm going to pop into Lightroom CC, and I'm going to hit reset on this image right here. So I'm in the I'm in the develop module right now, but let's go back to the library module in the grid. I just did that by hitting the G key. And I'm teaching on a workshop right now with the McKay Photography Academy group, and we're having a fantastic tour. We started our morning very early on top of Cadillac Mountain here in Bar Harbor, Maine, Acadia National Park. So moving between these images, I did ask it to build 1-to-1 previews. These are very large images. These are files from the Nikon D850 that I'm also currently testing on this. And you know what I love? I love that I'm showing you every single image that I created this morning. Good ones, bad ones, ones where I was just testing stuff. And that movement through those is quite quick, and I like that. Now, let's zoom in on an image. And instantly, because I built 1-to-1 previews, we're looking at the full image, and click to zoom out. Let's move over to the develop module. Actually, I tell you what, I've starred 2 images that I want to work on. So we got to hit reset on that one in a second. Let's go to this one first. And let's go into the develop module. Let's hit R because I might need to crop this a little bit and straighten it. I think that horizon out there is straighter somewhere around there. I was using a rock, and that rock wasn't as straight as my tripod usually is. So here's an image, and I'm just going to real quickly kind of work through this and see how responsive it feels. This part of the program really didn't feel too unresponsive for the most part. So I held down Shift, double-click whites, blacks, and hey, you know what? Look at this image. It starts to really kind of come alive. And if you need Lightroom help, I provide that in my support group. There's a link below. You can find out more about that. I'll talk about it briefly at the end of this video. Now, typically, how I would continue to edit an image like this is with a gradient tool. But before we get to that, let's go to the brush real quick. Let's get our brush tool, and let's say we just wanted to add a little bit more exposure and really make this reds pop here. So I'm brushing on, and are we seeing a quick responsiveness to it? If I hit Shift-O to change our color to something we see, let's see how quick that green fills in. Very, very quickly. That is a nice speed improvement. It's good. I like it. Let's delete that. And let's come back to the gradient. And I want to warm up the sky. I want to give it just kind of a more golden tone. So I'm going to bring my linear gradient down. I'm going to warm it up. I'm going to hit O so we don't see that green overlay. And we've warmed it up. That's nice, but you know what? Part of that blue sky doesn't really look realistic to be so warm. We now have the ability, we could edit it through the brush tool, but we now have the ability to go into the range mask and go to luminance. And we have a luminance slider from the brights to the darks. And we can narrow that area that's affected by our gradient based on its brightness. You hear stuff about luminosity masks. You work on that in Photoshop. They're fairly complicated but very powerful. Now we've brought some of that idea here into Lightroom by being able to refine our selection through the brightness. That's what this range of luminance is about. So you can really dial in and say, nope, I really only want the darker areas of this image to be warmed up, or I really only want the brighter areas of this image to be warmed up, and the transition between those can be as sharp or as soft, that's the smoothness slider, as you want. That's really cool. Let's go look at this image of Steve. He's another instructor on this trip and a good friend of mine, wearing his classic red jacket. We often love to get Steve out into the images because 1, he's a good looking dude, and 2, he's got a bright red jacket that really makes him pop. Sometimes we want that jacket to pop even more. Now this isn't the best example, but let me show you. If I wanted to pop more, I could throw a radial gradient over Steve with the exposure brighter. You can see he gets brighter, but you can clearly see that circle around him. I mean, we could lower that feathering and you can see that we've brightened that area. Let's bring that back up to something reasonable. But now, through the range mask color, instead of a slider for luminance, we have a dropper. We can come over here and say, please only affect that area, that color I've clicked on. And so now it's picked up that red and it's allowing me to select. I don't love what it's doing here, but this is a great example, I think, because it's so clear cut. If I need more of the red, I can click and drag kind of through this. I don't want to get that black though. And now you can see that we've gotten pretty much all of that jacket to be brighter. And as I move my exposure slider, it really just affects the jacket. It's picking up some of the tone on his skin as well, because honestly the jacket is giving his skin tone a little bit of red, but we could then go in and further refine that using the brush. With just a couple clicks, we have color masked a section of our Lightroom. That's pretty powerful and pretty snazzy. So I'm excited about that. I was really only looking forward to the speed improvements, and they seem to be here. I hope that they stay around. This is a newly updated catalog. I've been running this for about 90 minutes. It might start to slow down over time, but so far, I really like what I see. Now, let me show you what Adobe Lightroom CC looks like. Got it. Here we are. We're in Adobe Lightroom CC. I'm not going to go in depth here, but if you've been onto the web version, this should look very similar. It does now have a new feature though where it's going to try to find your very best images within this group. And what's in here can also be in Adobe Lightroom Classic CC. If you sunk those collections, will come across. And let's go through the listing real quick of the options that you have available to you. So you've got the 20 gigabyte a month photography plan. This gives you Lightroom CC Classic, Photoshop CC, and Lightroom CC. Does that confuse you for a second? Let's do it again. It gives you the Adobe Lightroom that you know and love if you're like me and use a desktop version. It also gives you Photoshop as it has been, and it gives you 20 gigabytes of online storage. $9.99 a month. It's basically what we've gotten all along, except now you also get access to this other program called Lightroom CC. There is also a 1 terabyte plan. It's exactly the same, except you get 1 terabyte. And there is now, this is different, this is new, the Lightroom CC plan. This is where you get just Lightroom CC. So on your machine you can install it, Windows, Mac, available both, mobile devices, through the web. It's that simplified version I just showed you a brief glimpse of, and 1 terabyte of space. So that's really designed, I think, more for the mobile photographer who is shooting RAW, wants some editing capabilities, but doesn't need the full Adobe Lightroom Classic experience, doesn't need all of that. And that's, I think, who Adobe is and Lightroom is going after with this next and new version. Am I excited about that? Not terribly. It doesn't really appeal to me. I drag this large desktop with me because I need the full experience of Adobe, but I do wonder at some point in the future, will it be good enough? My other issue is, of course, when I travel, the internet in a lot of places is just not great. So I'm not sure how that will turn out either. But we'll be back to talk more about this. And as I said, if you would like Lightroom help from a person who has education experience, Lightroom experience, and photography experience, that's me. I'd love to help you. You can join my community. There's links for more information about that down below, where I have hours and hours of training material, plus a fantastic support group for you to ask questions and get answers so that your pictures can look beautiful. If you've got any questions about Lightroom CC, Lightroom Classic CC, hey, suggest other names that they should have used instead of Classic. I'd love to hear them. Leave those right down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified of future tips, tricks, videos, and how-to stuffs. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.